Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and today we are going to be doing an April wrap-up and a May TBR, which will be picked out of my TBR jar. So here we go. Okay, so first we will be doing the April wrap-up. I read a total of 4 books this month, 2 romance and 6 fantasy, which is very, very not normal for me. Like, I normally would read only romance. And then I read ACOTAR, and then I read Throne of Glass. And now I just cannot stop reading fantasy because I have just become obsessed. So, we read 6 fantasy books this month and 2 romance. So, let's talk about them. The first book that I read this month literally brought me to tears by the end of it because it was the finale of the Throne of Glass series. This is Kingdom of Ash. This book, I have never cried this much reading a book. Like, I became so obsessed and connected to all of the characters in this series, and just the whole storyline that went in this book was so, it was very much emotional. It made me cry and it made me laugh out loud. And Aelin and Rowan, I'm gonna say I like them more than Rysand and Feyre. I do. I just love them so much, and I think that this series as a whole is not as popular as the ACOTAR series, but this one, I have to say I liked it more. I really did. It was so good, and I think about this series and this book especially literally every single day because it was just that good, and I'm so sad that it's over and I can't reread it for the first time ever again. And this is going to be a series that I reread probably at least once a year, and I will probably reread it this year even though I already read it this year. But it was just so good, and I literally I missed this world and these characters very much. So this was book 1 of April. 5 stars, infinity stars. If I could rate it more than that, I absolutely would, because it was that good. Read the Throne of Glass series if you haven't, because it will not disappoint, I promise. After reading the Throne of Glass series, it was all I read from well, not all I read, but I started Throne of Glass in January and I finished the last book in April, so I kind of needed a little break of fantasy. So then I read my highly anticipated read of the year, which was Final Offer, which is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This was the first book that I annotated for myself because this book was so good, and again it made me cry a lot because I loved Cal and Alana. And their whole journey, and Cal especially, everything that he went through, it was so sad. And this book was a 5-star, of course. It was just a perfect story for the couple. It was a perfect ending to the Dreamland Billionaire series, and everything. I just loved it so much, and I loved Alana's daughter. I literally always forget the kids' names, but I loved her daughter. She was adorable, and I loved seeing Cal be a dad. It was just so cute, and I loved everything about it. And I loved getting to see the other 2 couples throughout this book, and it was so good. It literally 5-star read. The whole series is a 5-star. Each book was a 5-star read. The whole series is 5 stars. If you didn't like this series, read it again. If you haven't read this series, please read it right now. Okay? This is one of my favorite books ever. I think this might be my favorite book of the Dreamland Billionaire series. And before this, it was The Fine Print, but it has been replaced by Final Offer. So this was a 5-star. After reading Final Offer, I was very much in a fantasy mood again, and I saw my one friend, Erin. If I can figure out how, I'll put a picture of her account right over here. But Erin was reading the Zodiac Academy books, and she literally, without her, I would not have read these, but she convinced me to start this series. Book 1, I read it in 2 days. Book 2, I read it in 2 days. Book 3, I read it in 3 days. Holy crap. These books were so good. I literally did not expect, I honestly didn't even think I was gonna like these books at all. And then I started the first one, and it took me like a little bit to get into the beginning of it, because it's like world building and explaining the characters and their story and everything. And then they get to the academy, and I was just like, this is literally so good. All of the characters, even though, like, the heirs, I hate them and I love them. Like, they're terrible people, but I love them. But I also hate them because they're terrible people. Darcy and Tori, though, I literally love them. They're one of my favorite, well, it's two of them. They're two of my favorite characters ever, I think. Like, seeing them stick together, because they're twins, they stick together literally through everything, and I love seeing them, like, I love just seeing them experience this new world and, like, go through all the different trials and the tests and all that stuff like that. And it just was so fun. Every single one of these books, I was hooked instantly. As soon as I finished this one, I immediately read this one. And then as soon as I finished the second one, wait, this is the second one. You get what I'm saying. I read all 3 of them back to back to back because I literally couldn't stop. They were so good. Lance Orion, amazing. I love Darius, even though he's literally a jerk. But of all of the heirs, he is my favorite, 100%. But I have never read through 3 books so quickly. I literally read all 3 in 1 week, and that shocked me. But they were so good. Like, if you've been hesitant about starting this series, you literally just need to get into it, because I didn't think I was gonna like it. It took me a minute to get into it, but then, oh my gosh, I literally couldn't stop. And I have been reading other books, and all I can think about is starting number 4. So, I won't be reading that in May. But these 3 books, you need to read them, like, ASAP. After Zodiac Academy, I read a debut novel by Sarah Samuels. This is her, well, I literally was about to say this is her first book, but that's what a debut novel literally means. Anyway, I read Timeborn by Sarah Samuels. This book really took me by surprise. I didn't think I was gonna like time travel, like, in a fantasy book. Like, I just thought it would confuse me and I wouldn't really understand what was happening, but I loved it. I literally loved this book. I read it in 1 day. Everything about it was just so much fun, and I literally couldn't put it down. Like, from the first sentence, you are just hooked immediately. I literally loved everything about it, and, like, I genuinely don't have words to describe this book, but it was just so much fun, and I loved the fantasy and the world building and just the characters and, like, the whole plot thing with the dagger, which is on the front, because look at this cover. I love it. And I'm so excited for book 2. It just was so good, and it took me by surprise. It was a quick read. It was super, super interesting. The fantasy was amazing. The characters were amazing. The romance was amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm just obsessed with it. Like, Roman and Olivia, set in Rome. What more do you need? Because this was literally so good. I loved it so much. And if you haven't heard of this book, now you have. You need to read this. You need to add it to your TBR. You need to buy it because it is amazing. And book 2 comes out in August, which it says it in the back of the book what it's called. Book 2 is called Darkness of Time. You guys, the cliffhanger that this book ends on literally made me want to pull my hair out. Not because it was bad, but because it was good. It was so good, I wanted to pull my hair out. Just read this book, because I can't explain it to you, like, with the right words. Like, I literally cannot do it justice. Like, you just have to read it. So, Timeborn by Sarah Samuels. Oh, you can't even see it over there. Timeborn. Read this, like, very soon. Then I was in a romance mood again, so of course I had to read Coach by Devney Perry. I was so excited to read this book, you guys. Oh, wait. Before I move on, the Zodiac Academy books and Timeborn were 5 stars. Just to remind you, because I don't think I said it. Coach by Devney Perry. I was so excited to read this book. I had been waiting for it to come out. I pre-ordered it. It came a little bit late and I was so anxious. And I could have just started reading it on my Kindle, but I didn't. Because I just had to have it like in my hands. So I started this book, I think last week. And I loved the beginning. I loved the whole like college aspect of it, but they weren't college students, which I loved. Like I loved having the college feel, but they're not students. Like it just felt, I just loved it. I loved Millie. Literally, oh my gosh, she is one of my favorite female characters ever, I think. She was just boss woman, you know? Like that term, that's literally what she was. Ford, I did really like his character. I loved them both, individually, and I loved his daughter. She was so cute. I thought she literally made me laugh out loud. This book made me laugh out loud. But this book was a 3.5 star for me, unfortunately, because the pacing was so quick that everything felt like really, really rushed. And like her Eden series, that was all fast paced. They're all like under 400 pages, but they all felt like the story was very developed and like there wasn't any like plot gaps or anything like that like confused me. But this book, it was like they would be at work one day and then the next chapter would be like 3 weeks later, and then at one point I was reading it and it was like 6 months after they moved, and it was just like there was a lot of jumps that made me feel like it felt really, really quick, and I felt like there was a lot of holes just in like the story. I don't know if that makes sense, but like that's how it made me feel. And I really, really liked it, but I also was expecting a lot more groveling from Mr. Ford Ellis over here, because he walked in the first chapter and immediately Millie is going from like, I hate this man, and then chapter 2 comes and she's like, I love him. Like, what have I been doing without him these past 10 years? Which is like, it's fine, but like, that it was just so quick. Like I felt like they were already back together within like the first 20% of like, this is not 20%, but like by chapter 5 I felt like they were already together again, and it just wasn't giving what it needed to give for a second chance romance, you know what I mean? Which was really sad, because I did like it. I didn't hate this book. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would still recommend it to people, because a lot of people do like super quick reads, and I did like this book. It just was not a 5 star for me because there was just a little bit too much. I just needed a little bit more. So this was a 3.5 star for me. But if you've read it and you've loved this book, I'm very much happy for you, because I wish I loved this book. But yeah, 3.5 stars for me. Then immediately after Coach, I started this book that I have just been wanting to read for at least 2 months. Like all I've been thinking about when I'm reading other books is like, oh my gosh, I want to read this book like next. I want to read this book soon. So I just went ahead and I started it. I started 6 of Crows. What day did I even start this? Like 4 days ago. And I finished it yesterday just in time for the April wrap-up, you know? This book was an immediate 5 stars for me. Oh my gosh. I loved the pacing. Like, it was slow, but it wasn't, like, unbearable. Like, it was perfect. Not slow, it was perfect. Like, we got so much detail about all the characters and the way that their world is set up, and like the different politics and like all their roles, and just like seeing their plans like unfold for this heist that takes place, which I literally was on the edge of my seat the entire time that was going on, because I was just panicked. Like I just wanted them all to get out of there immediately. But it was so good. It was like, it's a fantasy, but it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like so, it was like the most comforting fantasy I think I've ever read. Like, I don't know how to explain it the right way. Nina is like my favorite character in this book. I loved Nina and I loved Kaz a lot. Also, Jesper is hilarious. I love him, and I just love them all. all the characters were so good and so unique, and I loved seeing them. Like, they're also, well, they're not really that different from each other, I feel like, but they're all different from each other, but they still are able to work together. This book made me laugh out loud. It made me cry. It made me stressed out. It made me happy. All of the above. It was so good, and I read it. I just really enjoyed every second of the book. Like, I tried to read it slow because I was just genuinely enjoying it and I didn't want to rush through it, but I ended up doing that anyway because it was that good. I will be reading Crooked Kingdom probably this month also, just because I need to find out what happens. Okay, but it was literally so good. I'm so glad that I read this book, and I wish I didn't put it off for so long. Like, I will definitely be rereading this. Like, it was just so comforting. Like, I literally don't know how else to explain it other than it was just so... I'm not gonna say it again because I'm not gonna do that to you guys. It was just so good. I'm obsessed. 5 stars. Infinity stars. All of the stars. So, this was my April wrap-up. 8 books total. Overall, they were all 5 stars except for Coach, which was 3.5. This was a very good reading month for me. I enjoyed all of the books a lot. Overall, I'm very pleased with the books I've read last month. So now, let's get into the May TBR. Now, my first read of this month is going to be an ARC, and it is none other than Rewrite Our Story by Miss Kat Singleton. I am so excited for this book. I literally can't even... Like, I'm so excited to read it. I know it's a small town romance. That's all I remember about the description. But you know what? I like going into a book blind. So that will be my first read of May. I already know it's going to be 5-star. So I'm not counting that as like the books I get from up here. And then my brain just stopped working. All the books I'm going to pull from here will be read after Rewrite Our Story. And the other day, I did like a spinning wheel. On my jar, I have like, I'm literally going all over the place. Hold on. My TBR jar has 3 categories: romance in pink, fantasy in yellow, and then other in blue. And other is like dark academia, Greek mythology retellings, general fiction, mystery. All of that is just kind of put into one because I didn't have enough of all of them to give them like their own categories. So the other day I did like a spinning wheel and put the 3 options on, and so then I just hit it 6 times. I got 2 romance, 2 fantasy, and 1 other, which honestly I probably would have chosen that even if I didn't do the spinning wheel, so happy with that. So now we will pick from the jar, and I'm a little bit scared because I'm just a little bit scared. First up, we are going to pull out a romance one, and I'm going to try not to look... I mean, I need to see what color I'm picking out, but... Okay. I have 3 of them literally in my hand. Okay. Romance book number 1. Flawless! Guys, I've literally been wanting to read this series so bad, and now I have an excuse to stop. That literally... This just made the video. That made me so excited. Flawless, book number 1 of April. Now to pick out romance book number 2. And I hope it is as good as the first one, because literally that just made my mood. That just made my day. Okay, I saw that one. I need to pick a different one. This is a lot harder to like pick one out. Okay, this is taking way too long. Okay. Things we hide from the light. Guys, this is already an amazing reading month. For our 2 romance, we have Flawless and Things We Hide from the Light. I am so excited. Now to pick our 2 fantasy, which are the yellow papers. So, oh my gosh, my buttons keep hitting the chair and it's really annoying. Fantasy book number 1. Is this yellow? That's pink. Oh my gosh. I literally have so many romance that I can only pick up the romance ones because they're just, okay. Fantasy book number 1. I'm a little bit scared. It's fine. Liar's Crown. Okay. That's gonna be good. I've heard a lot of good things about that one. I'll explain all of these reads like when I'm finished picking them. Now for fantasy book number 2. Okay. Oh my gosh. Why am I scared? Dance of Thieves. Literally stop. This reading month is going to be amazing. I have a friend that has been begging me to read this series, and now I'm going to. Now to pick a book from the blue ones, which I am the most scared about because there's a lot of general. I'm not a big fan of anything not romance or fantasy, so this is gonna be a bit of a struggle for me. There's a few general fictions that I'm like fine with reading, but I need to make myself like get out of my comfort zone a little bit, so I just have to do this. Okay, the blue ones, the blue papers, as you can see, there is not that many. So okay, I am terrified. I literally don't even want to open it. Secret History. You know what? I can deal with this. Although, I did not like If We Were Villains, and I've heard a lot of people compare Secret History to that. So, we'll see. Overall, not bad options for this month. Not too upset about that at all. So, now let me pull off the books that I pulled out of the jar. Here we have our May TBR. Will I read more books than this? That is a possibility, but this will be the priority TBR for this month. So let's get into them just a little bit. So I already said in the beginning of the video that the first book I'll be reading this month is Rewrite Our Story, which is an arc from Kat Singleton. It's a small town romance, which is literally one of my favorite things in the world. So this will be the first book I read this I almost said April. This May. And I already know I'm going to love it. So I'm very excited for that one. Next, we will read Things We Hide from the Light. I am so excited to read this book. I absolutely loved the first book. I loved Knox and Naomi. So I am hoping that this one will live up to the hype and that I will enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first one. I'm very much excited to read Nash's story. I'm very excited to meet Lena. That's her name. I'm very much ready for this. I already know it's going to be good. I'm going to love it. So, book number 2 is Things We Hide from the Light. Then, we have Flawless by Elsie oh my gosh, I literally can't speak. I have been waiting to read this book, so why haven't I read it already? I don't really know, but I will be reading it now, and I know that I'm going to love this series, and I'm so excited. Like, literally, when I'm reading other books, just kind of like how I was thinking about, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read Six of Crows, like, while I'm reading other books. This is also one of those books that I do that with. Like, I'm reading other books, and I'm like, I'm excited. I want to read Flawless. Like, I want to read the Chestnut Spring series. Now, I will. A lot of my book friends have read these series. A lot of booktubers I watch and like bookstagrammers that I follow have read the series and have absolutely loved it. So I'm really, really excited. I'm gonna love this one. I already know. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. Now we have The Secret History. Like I said when I pulled this out of the jar, I'm a little bit scared because I didn't like If We Were Villains, and I know that this has been compared to that a lot. So I'm really nervous that I'm not gonna enjoy it. My sister-in-law read this book. She didn't like it either. So and we're very similar. So like, I'm a little bit scared, but we're gonna push through. This is the month we're gonna read this book. This is the month because I've been putting it off a long time. I do love how floppy this is. I'll take a hint, like take notes. This is what they should all be like. That is perfect. I'm excited but scared for this book, but we're gonna give it a try anyway. I will keep you updated. The first fantasy book that we'll be reading this month is The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen. I haven't seen too many posts about this one, but the ones that I have seen have been like amazing. So I'm really, really excited for this one. I have had it for a while, and now I finally have a reason to get it off my very packed TBR. Anyway, first of all, I love the cover. But this one is about twin sisters. One of them, they're like princesses. One of them is born to like take over the kingdom. And then the other one is just kind of like there as like backup. But then also it says that she is meant to like be a sacrifice. Like, oh, well, she's not going to be a sacrifice. She's just kind of like in the background, like the forgotten sister kind of thing. So the sister gets engaged to this, this king. Well, she has the sister that's like supposed to take over gets like a proposal from this king, but the sister that's in the background just is like, I don't trust you. So she takes her sister's place like the evening before the coronation where she's supposed to become queen, and the forgotten sister like takes her place instead. But then she gets kidnapped because they think that she's the real, well, she is a real princess, but they think that she's the sister. So then she gets kidnapped and falls in love with, I'm assuming, the person that kidnapped her. So that sounds really, really good. This is a YA romantasy. Very much excited to read this book. That's for sure. So, book number 5 of this month. Then, for the last book from the jar, we have the fantasy Dance of Thieves. My friend Abby has been begging me to read the series forever, so she's gonna be so happy now that I'm gonna read it. This is about a outlaw family that claims to be the first among nations. A son destined to lead, thrust suddenly into power. 3 fierce young women of the Queen's Guard, a street thief leading a mission, determined to prove herself. A dark secret that is a threat to the entire continent, and the outlaw leader meets this thief, and they are like, it says that they play like this cat and mouse game of like trying to like beat each other and like all that kind of stuff, and then of course they fall in love. So this is a romantasy. I know that there's a trilogy that a lot of people recommend reading before this one, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to start it with this because I am ready to read this. This has been on my shelf forever, and it's time. It's time. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun watching it. I highly recommend you make your own TBR jar because I am a super indecisive person. So this honestly just made it a lot easier for me to pick what I'm going to read, because I spend so much time like thinking about what I'm going to read when I could just I'm gonna read it. The one that I pick up, I'm just gonna read it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. For more frequent posts, follow me on my Bookstagram. But yeah, thank you guys for watching.